we will go ahead with our program, that is MHI-01 Block 7. We have already discussed minutely how Islam rose into prominence, and that rise of Islam had a serious bearing on oceanic trade. Our subject matter theme of this block, that is Block 7, is trade and commerce, especially trade of different countries, including maritime trade. So the rise of Islam had a great impact on oceanic trade from the middle of the 7th century to the end of the 15th. The Arab Muslim merchants played an important role in the development of oceanic trade. You know, when Arabs rose into prominence, they controlled the Mediterranean Sea. And at that time, during that period, Mediterranean Sea was the main center of trade, and that was controlled by the Arabs. So they played an important role in the development of oceanic trade, the Arabs first. So one way to trade with India was through Red Sea to Mediterranean Sea, and the second way was overland journey across the Persian Gulf, Iraq, and the Syrian desert. If you see the atlas of Asian continent of Asia, you can you can have a better understanding how the two ways worked or led to the Mediterranean Sea, which had acquired the importance with regard to ocean trade. So, trade from India was carried on by two ways. One through Red Sea and then Mediterranean Sea, and another through Persian Gulf and overland, that is on land through Iraq and Syrian desert. So both the ways were controlled by the Umayyad Caliph. Umayyad Caliph means we have discussed that the caliphate was divided into main two periods. One is Umayyad Caliphate and other was Abbasid Caliphate. Abbasid Caliphate started with the 750 AD. So during the Umayyad Caliphate, both these routes were controlled by them, and then the Abbasid Caliph. Thereafter, the Abbasids also controlled the trade. The medieval trade of Asia was founded on four great products of Eastern civilization, that is silk, porcelain, sandalwood, and black pepper. These four items constituted the main product of Eastern civilization to Arab countries and therefrom thence to European nations. So which were exchanged for incense, horse, ivory, metal goods, and so on. So the first to come to India, China, then Java and Sumatra. They first came to India, then China, then Java and Sumatra. The three regions, southern Arabia, the Persian Gulf, and Southeast Asia, remained for more than a million, the cornerstone of a pre-modern long-distance exchange in luxury objects. So far as luxury objects are concerned, this trade remained active for 300 years. After the Mongol conquest of China in 1280, the empire's maritime connections was strengthened. When the Mongols conquered China in 1280, the empire's maritime connections was strengthened, bolstered up. Marco Polo and Ibn Buffa mention that the two city ports of Hangzhou and Jaiton flourished during the period. That means the Chinese towns like Hangzhou and Jaiton, they took part in the oceanic trade. The decline of Abbasid Caliphate and the rise of the Fatimids in Egypt shifted the routing of long distance trade away from Baghdad and Damascus to Aden and Fustan. Fatimids, that is a type of Khalifa, Caliphate. Fatimids means just like the Umayyads and Abbasids. Similarly, in Egypt, Fatima means daughter of Prophet Muhammad. The caliphate which was established in Egypt was named or came to be known as Fatimids. Fatimids followers of a Khalifa, that is the daughter of Prophet Muhammad, Fatima. After her name, that caliphate came to be known as Fatimids. So the decline of Abbasid Caliphate and the rise of the Fatimids in Egypt shifted the routing of long distance trade. When Abbasid Caliphate declined and Fatimid Caliphate was flourishing, then the route took an altogether changed way. That is the long distance trade away from Baghdad and Damascus to Aden and Fustan. Baghdad and Damascus, Baghdad in Iraq and Damascus in Syria. Now the center of trade, main center of trade shifted to Aden. Aden means sea along the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea, which came under uh, the Fatimid Caliphate or Fatimids. In India, the Turkish Sultans of Delhi conquered Gujarat in 1303 and its maritime towns were now within the reach of Islamic social and political influence. Gujarat has a long coastal line and there we find a number of seaports. So when the Sultanate of Delhi conquered Gujarat, or the Sultan of Delhi conquered Gujarat, they found an outlet to the sea, and at the same time, the trading ports and coastal kingdoms of the Indonesian archipelago. Indonesian archipelago means Indonesia is a country. It consists of several islands, and several islands taken together is known as archipelago. So at the same time, the trading ports and coastal kingdoms of the Indonesian archipelago began to accept the Islamic faith. Islam spread far and wide, and during this period, it made its way to Indonesian archipelago, where people accepted or embraced Islam as their religion. Also, the importance of Alexandria at terminus of transcontinental trade became even due, greater due to the shifting of the seat of power by the Fatimids to Old Cairo. Even Alexandria achieved prominence, gained prominence because of this main center of trade now shifted from Damascus and Syria, from Baghdad and Damascus the the seat of power of Fatimids to Old Cairo. Now it is shifted to Egypt, and importance of Alexandria also increased. In China, the economic policies of the Ming dynasty produced two contradictory effects on maritime trade. The Ming dynasty in China, they had a mixed uh, feelings as regards to long distance trade. The third Ming Emperor Yuan Ten tried to increase the volume of trade of China, but the future Ming emperors were determined to close China's sea coasts to foreign visitors. One king tried to increase the Chinese trade, but another one, that is Yong Ten, he tried to in hit, but the future Ming, Yongten was trying to increase the volume of Chinese trade, but the future Ming emperors were determined, were hell bent to close China's sea coasts to foreign visitors. Trade in medieval Europe. In spite of Muslim domination of Mediterranean Sea, southern towns of Italy, that is Naples, Bari, Venice, etc., were not affected by the Saracen expansion. Saracen expansion means the Muslim expansion. Due to Muslim expansion in the Mediterranean and the southern towns of Italy, Naples and Venice, they were not in any way affected at all because of the Muslim expansion. After Crusades, the Muslim domination of the Mediterranean came to an end. After Crusades, Crusade is a long war that continued for hundreds of years. Crusade means it was a fight between the Christians and the Muslims over the occupation of a possession of Jerusalem, which was a sacred place for both the communities. So crusade means a fight, long fight, long war between Christians and the Muslims. And after these crusades, the the Muslim domination of the Mediterranean came to an end. Because of the Crusade wars, Muslim control over Mediterranean Sea came to an end, and medieval commerce developed in Europe because of the impetus generated by long distance trade. Now, medieval uh, commerce developed in Europe after the Crusade. The spices were the first object of this trade. So the Europeans were fond of spices which were available in Asian countries, India and Indonesian Indonesian archipelago. So India's maritime trade and consolidation. For as regards to Indian connection with the European traders, it was where the Portuguese who first came. As you know that in 1498 Vasco da Gama discovered an all sea route to India, and Portugal established trade relations with India first, and then Goa was conquered by Al-Bakr from the Sultan of Bijapur in 1510. In 1511, they also occupied Malacca in island in Indonesia, and they erected forts in key areas for controlling trade. So when Portuguese came as traders, taking the conducive position here in India for the Portuguese, they constructed, they first expanded their trade. Their trade extended up to Malacca and they conquered Goa, and also they erected forts, constructed forts in key areas, in strategic positions, strategic areas for controlling trade. Forts to control trade because of the dangers or if there was any obstruction in the carrying of trade, etc. Forts were constructed to carry on or to control the trade. Carthage and Kapila. It was through Carthage and Kapila that they carried on trade. The main instrument used for this was the Carthage or passport backed by armadas. Passport means a pass permission backed by armadas. Armada means fleet ship, that is Carthage. And they carried on trade by using these two things, that is Carthage and Kapila, and we have to know the meaning of the term Carthage and Kapila. Carthage is a pass or permission backed by armada. That means a permission which was backed by force, that is Carthage. And under the Carthage system, every Asian ship was required to take a Carthage from the Portuguese. That means every Asian ship under the Carthage, every Asian ship was required to collect or take a permission from the Portuguese. And if a ship was found without a Carthage, it was automatically confiscated and its crew uh, im- immediately killed or sent to the galleys. If a ship failed to carry a cartage means ship pass, then this ship was confiscated and its crew were taken to task. So this was cartage. That means a free pass provided by the Portuguese, and each Asian ship was required to collect it or to have it. In the second half of the 16th century, the Portuguese introduced the so-called kafila. After Carthage, they introduced another thing, that is the kafila or caravan system in the western coast of India. Caravan system means a long line of traders. That is called the caravan system. So Carthage and Capilla, the Portuguese introduced or carried on their trade by using Carthage and Capilla. Indian maritime trade in the 15th century continued as it was. Trade routes and commodities of trade with a little variation continued as before. That 14 in that is in 15th century, trade routes remained almost same, and European companies and Indian ocean trade. India's foreign trade as a whole witnessed a tremendous growth in the period as a result of the tripartite. Tripartite means three. Tripartite, tripartite trade means a trade where three parties take part. That is called tripartite. So India's foreign trade as a whole witnessed a tremendous growth, a fabulous growth, great growth in this period as a result of the tripartite participation of the Dutch, English, and the French, besides the role played by Indian maritime merchants. So, because of the participation of the Dutch, the English, and the French, and also the participation of Indian merchants, Indian trade as a whole witnessed a tremendous growth during this period. As you know that how first came the Portuguese, then French, then Euro British, then Holland. Likewise, so many European powers came to India, attracted by the fabulous wealth and a prospect of trade which would enrich them. That is why almost a number of European countries came to India with the purpose of carrying on trade with India and other Asian countries or South Asian countries. The British established the East India Company in 1600, followed by the French in 1664. After 64 years, the British established their company, that is East India, English East India Company. The French also established their company in 1664. Other European companies, Swedish and Danish, appeared only in early 18th century. After a long period time, the other European powers like Danish and the Swedish, they appeared. So commodities exported from India, what are the articles or commodities that were being exported from India? That is pepper and other spices. And from Indonesia also. In Indonesia, Indonesian archipelago, Indian clothes were in high demand. That means pepper and other spices were collected from Indonesia, and Indonesia was in demand or was in need of Indian clothes, which was in high demand in that country. Perhaps they exchanged their goods, that is spices for or clothes for spices. They now turned to Bengal. Now they turn to Bengal. The European powers turn to Bengal. Sorry, the Britishers now turn to Bengal. Bengal was a very rich province because of the fertility of the soil and uh, the industrious people. Then, so after 1757, it was a different story altogether. They started trading in Bengal. But after 1757, the story became something different or altogether different. After 1757, you know the date 1757 is a very momentous year in the annals of history, and in that year, or that is in 1757, the Battle of Plassey took place, where Sirajuddaula was defeated and Robert Clive came out victorious and occupied the Bengal with the political power. So, with the political power, the British wiped out other European and Asian rivals. Now, the British were in advantageous position and they expelled, they wiped out other European rivals. No European other than the British would be allowed to trade in Bengal. Not only the Europeans but also other Asian rivals. Nobody was allowed, whether it is Asian or European, except the British. Only British were entitled, only companies people were entitled to trade in Bengal. So Bengal was described as best flower of company's garden. Company's garden, Bengal was described as the best flower. That means Bengal provided the maximum wealth to East India Company for a further expansion in India and for strengthening company's military establishment. The fertility of Bengal, the revenue of Bengal, and the strong foundation that Battle of Plassey provided in Bengal. Using Bengal as springboard, the British was Bengal as springboard along with the revenue. The British were successful in occupying the whole of India in a piecemeal manner from the springboard of Bengal. So that is why it has been dubbed by the European, by the British people, that of all the gardens, in the garden of company, Bengal is the best flower, as Bengal provided to be a strong stepping stone to the Britishers. Bengal raw silk was principal item of export to Japan. To Japan also Bengal supplied raw silk, and the French emerged as a formidable rival of the English and the Dutch only from around the 1730s. From 1730s, they had become the rivals of the British so far as trade is concerned. Textile, raw silk, and saltpeter were the principal items exported by the company. Company exported certain materials of principal items like textiles, raw silk, and saltpeter, and opium was also another item, and also indigo. Indigo means it's a from which the color blue color is prepared. So and imports into India, when there were exports, there must be imports, and what India imported from abroad, that is precious metals, gold, silver, and other precious metals, and also horses and other luxurious items. So India also imported many items from abroad. Overseas trade of Indian merchants. Indian merchants also carried on their overseas trade. It doesn't mean that if the British and the other European powers came to India and continued their trade, they could not eliminate the Indian merchants altogether. And the Indian merchants also carried on their overseas trade with the other countries, and they carried on their trade with the through Persian Gulf. Persian Gulf, that I have told you that there were two ways. One way through Persian Gulf and Iran, Iraq, and the Syrian desert up to Mediterranean Sea, and another way route was through Red Sea up to Alexandria and then into Mediterranean Sea. So both the ways terminated in Mediterranean Sea, from where the goods were taken to European countries and other countries. So business communities were many who used to do business. Not all the people who were engaged in business activities. There were certain communities. Their number was also many, but we will take up some major business communities because of the space constraint and time constraint. We are not taking the business communities as a whole, but some important communities we will take into consideration. Among the major business communities mentioned may be made of Armenians, the Jews, the Karimids, and the Arabs. These communities were major business communities, though there were other communities engaged in trade and commerce. Armenians, from earliest times to the end of the pre-modern era, and they engaged themselves in international and intercontinental trade. International means from one nation to another nation, and intercontinental means from one continent to another continent. When one nation to another nation, the trade takes place from one nation to another nation, it, it means within the same continent. That is in Asian continent, from India to uh, Iraq or Iran, that is the Asian continent. From continent to continent means a country from one continent and to a country from another continent. So that is from Asian continent to European continent. So among these business communities, the major communities, that is the Armenians, the Jews, the Karimids, and the Arabs, they engage themselves in trade activities, and the Armenians engaged themselves in international and intercontinental trade. Regions of success, they became successful, they were successful traders, and let us see why they were successful. Armenians often acted as Armenian means a group of people. Armenian often acted as a group. They had one language, one culture, and one religion. That means there was a marvelous unity among the Armenians because of their because of the bond that kept them binding. Bond like they had one language and they lived as a group, one culture and one religion. Naturally, people with so many factors, cultural factors are supposed are or definitely will or there will be unity among them definitely that people or a group of people using same language, same religion, same culture, following same culture, so they had a strong unity among them, and that was why they succeeded in doing the business. Then came the Jews. Jews were also very rich people in Europe, and they engaged in trade, and it was because of the, their wealth, and they belong to uh, um, another human race for which the Jews were mercilessly killed by the Germans. That is not within our ambit, and if it comes, then we will discuss. Then Karimi, merchants, an economic organization, better an annual convoy or a sea-borne caravan. Karimis were a sea annual convoy or a sea-borne caravan. Then so these were the Karimids, the Jews, the Armenians, were the and the Arabs were the major business communities who engaged themselves in trade and commerce. Then let us come to the what happened, what about to Indian business communities. So we have also in India major community groups, that is the Banjaras, long distance transporters, Banjaras, then Baniyas, village and town merchants. These are Baniyas. One was Banjaras, today those who carried on long distance transports, and Baniyas, village and town merchants. The Banjaras combined the pastoralism and trade. Banjaras did not solely depend on trade. They also practiced pastoralism. That means they used to domesticate animals. Along with the domestication of animals, they also carried on trade. And their organization was called Tanda. All their and they moved from place to place with all their belongings. Whatever stock they had with them, whatever belongings they had with them, they moved with all their belongings from place to place. And Baniyas and other merchant groups. Baniyas were divided into 84 subcastes according to Abul Fazl. Abul Fazl mentions that Baniyas were not a single caste, they were divided into 84 subcastes. Different types of Baniyas were there according to Abul Fazl. And as regards to the pattern of trade, it varied from region to region. Varied from region to region means we have India is a vast country, a subcontinent. So trade varied from one region to another. The type of trade that was prevalent in eastern coastal area was different from northern, from different was different from the type of trade that was prevalent in northern India. So pattern of trade varied from region to region. And during the Middle Ages, the land and water routes were used. In India, both land and water routes were used because India had a number of perennial rivers or navigable rivers throughout the year, like the Ganga, Brahmaputra, and in south there are also other rivers and tributaries also, and that is both river and land routes were used for trade purposes. The trade of Central Asia extensively used to land routes. Central Asia trade with Central Asia, the Indians used to, or for Central Asian trade, land routes was suitable because no major river uh, could could help transport goods up to Central Asia. And the caravan routes linked the Mediterranean world with India, Iran, and China. Caravan routes means a long line of businessmen, those who carried on business in groups uh, and and they because of their safety or for ensure to ensure their safety that link the Mediterranean world with India, Iran and China. The travelers on their way to India used the Red Sea ports of Jor and Jeddah and Ubullah in the Persian Gulf. Seaports of Jor and Jeddah in the Red Sea and Ubula in the Persian Gulf. These are seaports they used to um, in Red Sea and in Persian Gulf respectively. Central Africa had indirect contact with the Indian Ocean. The age of discovery resulted in the forging of more trading links between Africa, Asia, America, and Europe. The age of discovery. Age of discovery means when geographical discoveries took place. Vasco da Gama discovered all sea route to India. Columbus discovered America. Then other geographical discoveries like the Francis Drake, Magellan, and others, they carried out to long sea voyages and discovered many lands and islands, many continents and other places, and that gave a fillip to trade and commerce between Africa, Asia, America, and Europe. Now, routes were known to the people, to the navigators, because of geographical exploration, and the trade became possible um, between or among continents like Africa, Asia, America, and Europe. The Mediterranean, Baltic, Atlantic, Indian Ocean, and Arabian Sea were extensively used for international trade. Mediterranean Sea, Baltic Sea, Atlantic Ocean, Indian Ocean. These are they contain the busy traffic so far as international trade is concerned, and also Arabian Sea. The centers of commercial activity. Centers of commercial activities means there were certain centers which where commercial activities took place, and those were markets and fairs. Growth of towns and markets. Each town had a market. Every town had a market, and that was a that was a center of commercial activities in market and throughout the world several markets, big markets came into being like London, Paris, Moscow, Barcelona, Venice, Madrid, Lisbon, Bavaria had big markets in India, Surat, Agra, Lahore, Patna, Delhi, Bijapur, etc. They, these markets emerged as big markets where commercial activities took place. Fairs. To begin with, fairs were mainly related to religious and ritual festivals and celebrations. Whatever fairs were observed during those periods, those were meant or related to religious and ritual festivals and celebrations. With the expansion of trading activities, most of them became centers of commercial activities also. With the expansion of trading activities, when trade activities increased or flourished, and those centers became those places became centers of commercial activities too. The, the frequency of holding prayers was not uniform. Variety of businessmen participated in it. So whenever there were fairs or fairs were held observed in different places, though basic aim was religious or religious purposes or ritual festivals, those gradually became centers of commercial activities, these fairs. Then credit and money lending. Credit was widely prevalent. Credit was widely prevalent in the trading activities. Credit means to ସେଟାକୁ ବାକି ଦେବା ଯୋଉ ସେଟା ହେଲା credit. So credit was widely prevalent in the trading or to give loan also on credit activities. The wholesalers would give things on credit to retailers and later return to the consumers. The credit system acted as a chain. The wholesaler gave commodities to the retailers on credit and the retailers in turn to the consumers. So when the money will come from consumers, then the retailer would pay back the money to the wholesaler. That is, the credit system was prevalent in commercial activities in those days. The wholesalers would give things back. The practice of lending money was prevalent both in Europe and India. Practice of lending money, which is now also prevalent even today, and it has become a good source of income for many people who believe in money lending or who are engaged in money lending. That is, money lending was prevalent both in Europe and India. Partnership also existed. Partnership means two partners or three partners, two to three people together they would start a business. That means maybe one may be financer and other the merchant. Financer would provide money and merchant would carry on the business and property would be shared according to their agreement. that is a partnership also existed. Payment of debts was also an integral part of commercial transactions. Debts means those who uh, took credit on or who took loans, they were under obligation to pay the debt. Debt means runa, or the money which one has borrowed from another. That is, one was required to pay. It constituted an integral part of the trading activities, that is, the payment of a debt. Several methods were used to facilitate exchange. One such method was a fair letter. Exchange means they, they traded with several countries. So how the currency was in different types in different countries. So a there was a exchange system even at that period, and one of the method was a fair letter. Fair letter, what is fair letter? It recorded debt in presence of several municipal magistrates. It recorded debt and interest was charged by the lenders from the debtors. Interest was also charged. Money was not given in credit as a freebie or free of cost. Certain amount of interest was also charged on the money. So money lending was not permitted by Christianity and Islam also. They do not believe in money lending. Christianity and Islam do not allow this practice. Yet the practice continued in transgression of the religious injunction. So rate of interest varied from region to region. Rate of interest means what should be the rate of interest that depended on the practice which was prevalent in a particular region. So it varied from region to region. And instruments of exchange, money changing and bank. The use of currency was integral to trading activities. The use of currency. Currency was a must for trading activities, and paper money and paper credit was also used. Paper money was used, paper credit was used. Tang in China was issuing flying cash to pay for goods acquired in distant areas, and these money drafts were reimbursed at the capital. Flying drafts means one type of mm, surety mm, granted to the creditor, and that money will be given at the capital at a different place. So because of varying currencies and their value, role of money changers became. There are varying currencies. Every region has um, a certain type of currency, and their value also differed because of the difference in weight of the currency. So there was the role of money changers. Role of money changers become important. Money changers, who is a money changer? Who who converts money, one type of money to another. That is, he is a money changer. The bill of exchange also made its appearance. Bill of exchange means these bills were written by money changers and assured the payment abroad in foreign money to merchants. The type of the method in which we are now changing the foreign currency in that is stock market जो ଅଛି ଆମର that Indian currency can be converted to European currencies can be converted to dollar, converted to pound, and other any country. So this type of things was also done in those period because of the varied currencies prevalent in different regions. And there was the bill of exchange, which assured the payment abroad in foreign money to merchants. The payment was equivalent of the sum deposited by the merchants with the money changers. Whatever money the merchant would deposit in money changers at a different place, that money, the exact money would be received by the merchant. Though some charges were or charges must have been collected. In India, hundi was the most important instrument of exchange. Almost every village had a saraf. Saraf was a group of people who were money changers. Money changers means sarafs were called money changers, and they almost every village had saraf. Sarafs were found in every village, and their work was to, and they were called money changers. Their work was to change the money. The hundi in form of a paper was issued for loans, money deposit, or remittance of money from one place to another. This is a kind of a bond, surety bond containing value that the paper was issued for loans. It was applicable to loans and money deposit and also remittance of money can be deposited through hundi and collected at a different place. Similarly, remittance also. So it carried the amount to the specific period and the place where it was encassable. The hundi carried the amount, what was the amount to the money was written in that paper or hundi, and also the specific period in how many days it would be collected, and the place where it was incassable, and the place where it would be encashed. That is where the money would be exchanged or money would be collected. The interest and other charges depended on the nature of a transaction. Interest and other charges depended on nature of a transaction. And in the Abbasid Caliphate, the bills of exchange were called the Saftaja and check as Sak. One is Saftaja, that is the bill of exchange called during the Abbasid Caliphate, and check was known as Sak. Saak. Check was known as Sak. The institution of banking on a full scale with a resident banking establishments came into existence. Institution of banking also came into existence because of the increasing trading activities. Large scale trade flourished and money was required to be transacted from one place to another in different forms. So banking became a necessity, and the banking system came into being during this period. Another institution that emerged in late medieval period was exchange or a stock exchange. Exchange or stock exchange. Now, in modern times, we have stock exchanges, which was central to all trading activities. If international trades are conveniently carried out, it is because of the stock exchange, because we can change any foreign money uh, with uh, the native money. So then accounting. The recording of a commercial transaction was essential for regulating trade. Recording of a commercial transaction, how much transaction takes place every day, and how much material was sent for a trade, and how much material was collected. So all these things regarded or required a record. Record means commercial transaction required records, and that would be fulfilled by accounting. Accounting played a vital role to symbolize monetary transaction. An accountant could keep records of monetary transactions easily, and that will facilitate the trading activities or commercial activities. Personnel of trade. Personnel means the people who were engaged in trade, who were associated with the trade, or who were linked to trade, like directly. The growth of trade and business transaction gave rise to a host of commercial activities and persons associated with it, like merchants, moneylenders, financiers, food finance, a trade, then money changers, food change money, brokers, go between brokers, bankers, commercial agents, etc. So a number of people were associated with the trading activities, and they were called personnel of trade. Then textile production, one of the oldest crafts, various types of clothes, different communities, grades, religious, climate, etc. Textile production was very important, and its forms and style depended on a number of factors, like that people of different communities of people belonging to different communities live here, or people belonging to different creeds, Hindus, the clothes or the type of clothes Hindus wear will not be the same as worn by the Muslims or Christians. So according to the communities, creeds, and regions, people of Kashmir will have different clothes than the people of Tamil Nadu, because one part is cold and other part is hot, and also climate. So according to because of different factors, that that has or that have impact on the type and the style of clothes or textile production. That is then pottery, porcelain, and ceramics. Pottery making was common to all subjects. Pottery was a very ancient craft, and pottery was a household industry, and it was a very it was common to all societies. all societies used to be engaged in production of pottery. And it was in China that the manufacture of porcelain and ceramics was developed, and it became an important commodity of foreign trade. Porcelain, one type of um, stuff, and ceramics. This is also from the soil. So, for ceramic and porcelain manufacturers, the Chinese were famous, and these items were very famous all over the world. Then glass making in Europe, glass industry was linked with the church. With the construction of glass industry, the demand for stained glass window was also rose. The stained glass window is a glass mosaic having multiple colors. That means the demand of glass window increased when churches were built, and different types of glasses with the mosaic of colors with a different of colors were fitted to the windows to increase its beauty or to embellish the church. Then metallurgy and mining. Use of various metals and minerals. People used various metals and minerals by the Middle Ages. Different types of metals were used, and metallurgy emerged as a very as a good industry or a very important industry because the metals were extracted from different metal ores, and metallurgy became very important industry because of the use of so many metals. Let it be silver, gold, then bronze, tin, copper, iron, and other metals were used to in different works. So metallurgy became very prominent industry during this period. Organization of production and guilds. The organizational basis of varied crafts were not identical everywhere. In Arab world, village craftsmen were householders. Organization of organizational basis of varied crafts, different crafts and of or different artisans of different crafts have different organizational basis. In Arab world, village craftsmen were householders. The Umayyad caliphs monitored and controlled all craftsmen. It was the Umayyad caliphs. They controlled and monitored all craftsmen. In China, craftsmen were employed in the arsenals, imperial workshops, iron and salt mines. Different countries, the artisans were engaged for different purposes. Under Shang dynasty, corporations subject to strict supervision emerged in India, in China. In Japan, craftsmen were organized in clans. The craftsmen were known as Ja. In Japan, they were known as Ja. As they were organized in a clan. In India, royal karkhanas were under the state jurisdiction of rulers. Royal karkhanas were there where the artisans worked. The articles produced in these karkhanas were not for market but for the consumption of royal. When the rulers had their own karkhanas, the artisans worked there, and the the goods produced in Royal Karkhanas were not meant for sale in market, and those were produced for the consumption or for the use in royal household. It was a guilds which provided organizational basis to various industries in Europe. In Europe, was where the guilds that provided various organizational basis. Working condition is a very important aspect of the artisans. The position of artisans was determined by position of skills. Naturally, a skill determines the position or status an artisan should occupy. If he has a better skill, then he will be respected and will occupy a respectable position. If an artisan does not have any skill, just an ordinary, he will work as an worker, just an ordinary worker, and the unskilled workers were paid low wages and were not organized. And definitely the workers uh, who have no any skill, they would be paid low salaries as compared to the skilled artisans, and working conditions were very hard. By that time, working conditions were very hard, and the redressal of their grievances was intertwined with the prevailing polity. That means the type of freedom, the type of status and dignity the present workers' union provides to the workers that was absent in medieval period or during the period, because the working conditions were hard, means they had to work for long hours. They were required to work in hazardous conditions, and they could not get any amenities and other privileges which the modern workers are now availing for themselves. So definitely life was very hard and somehow primitive, and their grievances were were not redressed by the authorities concerned, because the time was like that in medieval period. It was the type of freedom, the type of liberty, and the notion of equality had not yet come to the fore. It was after 1789 that liberty, equality, fraternity, and other modern political ideas became ripe among the people across the globe. So definitely the workers of those period you know, led a very hard life, difficult life, and they could not redress the grievances, even if injustice was done to them. So this, I think, I hope the block 7 is complete, and if we meet in our next class, we will have the uh, block 8 or like that. So thank you all for giving me a presentation. Thank you all once again.